Doing
Awesome.
well. Another day.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we'll get this started and we'll start chatting. Hi, everyone. I'm Don Sauce here, Faculty Associate Director of the Teaching and Learning Center, and lots of other hats too, but that's the one that matters today. A couple of announcements. If you're watching asynchronously, it's really important you hear these. Number one, you found us at the Professional Development Series in the TLC. Glad you're here. You can get a professional development certificate or even fellow status. My colleagues have just dropped that link into the chat, as they are awesome about doing. Our event today is a teaching chat, so it's almost, a little bit free form. I've got a couple of questions that I want to pose to the group, but it's an opportunity for us to kind of talk about concerns, issues, those kind of things. But next week, we're going to have an amazing event by Deepak Supramoni from the College of Education about how to better engage students in our online courses. Online teaching has been around for a long time, and it's definitely here to stay. And I think growing our skills and doing that well is important. So I'm really excited about that coming up. I also have a couple of other announcements, or at least one other announcement. Lori Niffen is an assistant professor at Fort Hays State University, and she will be coming to our campus on Monday, April 10th, to deliver a service learning workshop from 1:30 to 3:30 at the Leadership Studies building. That is Town Hall Room 114. We have an awesome little announcement that we can drop into the chat for you to check that out. It should be pretty cool. And if you look into that, not only is it kind of talking about how to build service learning into your class, but part of that workshop will be actually building it into your class. There's an opportunity to kind of workshop your own syllabi to make that happen. So very excited about that event in partnership with Leadership Studies. So that's coming up in just a little bit. And SOTO Showcase. I knew I had one more. The SOTO Showcase. Really cool thing. This is going to be a second time doing it. So now we can say annual. It'll be our second annual Teaching and Learning Center SOTO Showcase. It will be the Monday of finals week starting at 1:30. That is May 8th. And that'll be in Hale Library, room 181. If you are doing research on teaching, if you have innovative ideas, we want you to present them there. There'll be opportunities for talks. There'll be opportunities for posters to submit to the event. Really easy. You can just hit that link that you see in the chat there. It takes you to a Qualtrics survey. You give us some information, and we would love to have you part of that event. Someone who is not here right now, but maybe watching asynchronously, I won't say who they are. I saw you talk about research you presented recently on Twitter this morning, so you should come to our SOTO research and present that same research. So if you've taken something to a teaching conference or something, you can bring it to us too and share it with the university community. We're really excited about that. And if you have questions about any of these things, please let us know, and we'll be happy to give you a little bit of guidance and insight. Questions about any of our announcements? Yes, Sarah.
It's not an announcement question. It's an Andy, what in the hell is behind you on your screen question? Like, that's world ending.
Yeah, it's a zombie apocalypse.
At one point, I considered myself like a zombie expert. Like, I had read all the things. I'd met Max Brooks, like all the stuff. So that's props right there. Very nice.
I use zombies to teach hypothetical statements in Spanish. So I give students like, what would you do if the zombies came right now? Where would you go? And then to get even more in it, I have like a whole chart that has like different like movies, video games, books about zombies, and like their different attributes. Like, are they fast or slow? Do they have intelligence? Are they vulnerable to fire? And so then the students have to go through and they have to say, if I met a zombie of this type, I would do this. And if it was a zombie of this type, I would do that. So that's it's one of my favorite things to do with students.
That is very nice. Also a great way to see if you're using the passive voice. So if by zombies works after it, then it's passive voice versus active voice. I will tangent to a very, very brief conversation. I met Max Brooks. Max Brooks is the author of World War Z. World War Z is my favorite book. I keep suggesting it for the K-State First Book. It keeps not making the selection for some reason. If you've seen the movie, it's nothing like the book. The book is actually an oral history of the zombie apocalypse. Every chapter is written from a different viewpoint. It talks about macro level, micro level, individual level, societal level impacts of the zombie apocalypse. It's amazing. It's a really awesome book. But I met Max Brooks. I'd seen the movie. The movie has fast zombies. The book has slow zombies. Zombies are slow, has fast zombies. I'll clean up the story. I'll take out the profanity and other contextual things. But I said to Max Brooks, dude, why were the zombies fast in the movie? My opening line to Max Brooks he replied, he laughed, he said, "I just sold Harlem Hellfighters, which is a graphic novel he'd written to Hollywood. I just hope they keep the soldiers black." So it's one of those kinds of things where I have a soft spot for zombies. And I also believe they're only slow. But here we are. So anyway, now we're going to start the actual teaching part of our chat. Although community building and rapport and storytelling are part of creating, classroom community and those kinds of things. So we're modeling some of that. Are there any emergent issues or concerns that people want to talk about before I get to some of the questions that I might have that I want to crowdsource some answers for? That is amazing. That is actually probably the most awesome silence I've ever heard. So ask a question, your things going poorly, and you're like, "Nah, we have nothing to say." I will say that some of our colleagues have shared, and this will be the first one I'll kind of bring up. And when I say some, actually some on this call, so I'm surprised they didn't kind of chime in. Have a hard time engaging students at this point in the semester. So we've just come back from spring break. Maybe students are experiencing a little bit of fatigue, maybe a little senioritis, and they're kind of wondering, what do we do now at this point in the semester to kind of keep them with us? So I'd love to crowdsource some kind of answers to that question about how to engage people right now. And when I say people, I don't just mean the people in the class, I mean people teaching the class, because we are not immune to that fatigue element, that grumpy time that we talked about before. So what do you got?
This is something that I always anticipate as part of course planning. So like, thinking ahead, knowing that the second half of the semester is always, there's like low energy days, and it can just be hard to kind of keep going. And so I try to strategically include a film related to the course at some point. So like my students just watched a film on Thursday. Instead of coming to class on Thursday, they watched a film and we talked about it in class yesterday. And so, like kind of easing back into coming back from spring break, it's like we have a class and then it's like, all right, we don't have next class. You just have to watch a film. And students tend to be a lot more into talking about a film than like a more dense academic paper. So films, and then I also try to like strategically put in 1 or 2 like work days where we just have like time in class to work, or we cancel class so that students can go do a task somewhere else. I think that having a couple days in the second half of the semester that are not as rigorous can help a lot in terms of kind of keeping up that momentum.
I love that idea. The only thing that I'm going to kind of challenge a little bit is I think it's a bit of an undersell to say it's not rigorous, right? I think there are lots of different ways to.
I did the air quotes with rigorous,
No, I know. You're among friends here though, and we get you. So I think it is one of those things though that not everything in our classes has to be arbitrarily difficult. We've talked about that before, but not everything in class has to look like normal class. So I want, and especially because I know some people are earlier in their teaching career here, just because it doesn't look like school stereotypically looks like doesn't mean it's not educational. So I just want to kind of say, I definitely appreciate you have rigor in your class and you showing a film to help your students learn. I'm not bothered by that at all. That's really cool.
I think too, it also helps combat. There's something I was reading an article recently that was about like, they called it creep, like work creep, holiday creep, that like everything just is like the expectations keep like ramping up and up and up. And I feel like that's a thing that we're seeing in academia is that, oh, we need to add more, we need to do more in our classes, we need to have more for the students, without thinking about, okay, like, yes, a lot of this stuff that we're adding is really good, but we can't just keep adding without taking away. Like you still need space to process information. And I think that that's where those days come in that are not rigorous. It's about giving students an opportunity to process and synthesize, that if you don't give them that time, they're not going to maximize their learning.
I absolutely agree with that. Sarah, yes.
I lost my unmute button. It got hidden behind everything else.
We can hear you now.
Okay. So I'm curious. I'm come from the humanities background, so our classes are typically smaller, so this works better. But when Andy said like, have them go somewhere else and think about things and stuff, process through stuff that they're working on. I'm curious as to like, it's springtime, people want to be outside, like how helpful is it to actually move your class to a different location? I mean, that could be as random as I've seen people sitting outside on the lawn, but like we have the innovation lab in the library where we have like tables that are literally whiteboards and whiteboards on the wall. And I'm curious, like, is just changing that location and putting it in a space where people aren't used to being, is that a way to re-engage people, or is that a way just to lose people? They're like, I didn't know where you were meeting, or we're meeting outside, clearly it's not important.
That is an excellent, I have some thoughts on this, but I want to hear what other people have to say first. What do we think? So for LB just coming in, LB, the question is, we're talking about engaging our students after spring break for the rest of the way. We've seen some people coming back, maybe being a little lower energy, a little less invested, maybe. So we're trying to get them re-engaged, and Sarah's kind of offering the opportunity. Maybe we take them somewhere else. Maybe we take them to, maybe the outside, maybe innovation lab. How do we feel about changing the location? And Sarah kind of offered the possibility that this might actually be confusing for students. We might not actually get them to the new location. So we're kind of looking at responses to that. So what do we all think? And if you don't talk, I'm going to talk, but I want to give you all opportunity.
I mean, I always go with like making sure that there's a clear, like what you're doing and a good reason for moving the class. And sometimes that reason is like, we need a change of pace, that can be fine. But then also having like, and with this opportunity, we want to make sure to do X, Y, and Z. I think that my issue always with like the classes outside have been that a lot of times outdoor classes don't really function for the things that I want to get done or the tools that we need to use. And so in those cases, when students are begging me to go outside because it's a nice, beautiful day, I go, well, we can't accomplish X, Y, and Z outside. But I tell you what, if you're on task and we can get through X, Y, and Z, we can peace out early and like go and enjoy the day. But I think that, just making sure that whatever your goals are for that day's class or for the course, that you make sure that you have something specific that you are asking the students to accomplish during that change.
I will say for me, I'm not going to use getting out early as a reinforcer. I think that something would be uncomfortable with the way that I think about my class, but I get how something like that could work. I've found outside is just too distracting. There are just too many things outside. As a student, I never paid any attention when class was outside, and I've actually never done it as an instructor. What I have done is I've had classes, especially graduate seminars, Varsity Donuts or, over lunch or something like that, where the people have done most of the work. They've read the articles we're going to talk about, and now we're going to have a facilitated conversation, much like we're doing now. And that is something that travels well. But I do think Andy is absolutely right that it kind of depends on what your class is going to do. And some of those things allow for the change in location. Some of the things are better if you change the location. Some of the things you do in the innovation lab allows you to do things your classroom wouldn't do. So I like the point that there needs to be a reason.
One of the things too, I just thought of something that I've done with students before is that like, I don't hold class outside, but I have had students go for walks during class. So if I want them to think about something, like rather than like sitting and thinking in the classroom, be like, I have this question. We're going to go out. We're going to take a walk around campus for, like 5 minutes, just get moving so that you can just kind of like process through movement, because I think that that's a helpful thing to do and something good to model. And so, kind of thinking outside the box to find ways that you can make going outside or doing something different function. So I find that that has been something useful that I don't use as often as I would like to, because we don't have as many nice days as I would like to have. A lot of times the weather kind of impedes that. I don't feel like it would be as relaxing or useful as it would be. But that is, on nice days, it can be nice to just take your students out for a little walk and let them think and process.
I think also, Andy, and I'd written the response to you, but I also understand where Don's coming from. And in our field, it's easy for us to take our students outside if we want them to draw when they're outside. But another reason may be just observation of human behavior that then has been discussed in the class, and you're having them go out to see it in the real world, to see how it really happens, or in a way to do what some would call scavenger hunts, or an exercise where they have to apply what they've learned in the previous session, and then they go do that from another setting. So it really does depend on what the intent of the experience. And I find that if my class has been in the studio or in a classroom too long, I'll say, you know what, today is nice. We're going to do this applied exercise, and let's just get out of this room. Maybe we go to a different room. Maybe we do it in the hallway. We just need to get out of that space and see it from a different perspective, because maybe the other space is warmer rather than cooler. Maybe it's darker rather than brighter. There's all kinds of reasons to kickstart their imagination and get them to think about things in a different way. So that's my 2 cents for.
I love the idea that both of y'all bringing up about the outside kind of engages them in the actual topic. So it gives them a different space, gives them a data collection point like LB is talking about. And it actually reminded me of a creative writing class that I took as an undergraduate, where the instructor was kind of frustrated that we weren't writing plausible dialogue. And they're like, nah, we're writing plausible. And they said, you know what? Rest of class, go to a public space and eavesdrop on people. And I want you to write down what they say. Don't even evaluate, just write down what they say, and then we'll come back. And we came back, and what we found is that at least the way that social conversation works, it's often not I say something and you respond to me. It's I'm having a conversation parallel to your conversation, and we just wait to have our different conversations. And she's like, all of your dialogue is too clean. That's not how people actually talk. And it's one of those lessons that I still kind of remember, like when we write vignettes and stuff for our studies, it's got to be plausible. It's not what someone would say. It's not how they would say it. And it's a lesson that stayed a long time. I can't even remember the instructor's name, but I remember that experience that I had about going and eavesdropping on people. And she had a disclaimer, if you get beat up, it's on you. But you gotta go out and, do this subtly as an observer of human behavior. So Sarah, I feel like this is an opportunity I can't miss. Do you want to give a little pitch for the Innovation Center?
Oh, sure. So the Innovation Lab is 2 stories in Hale. It's not like the full floors, but it's 2 stories in Hale. And it's really designed as a place for people to come and try stuff, maybe fail at stuff, just experiment with things. So we have a variety of different spaces in there, and it is staffed. So we have a couple of professional staff, and then we have a lot of student employees who are comfortable working with the technologies and the resources in there. So on the ground floor, we have the maker space, which is a long room, and we have like 12 sewing machines in there. We have we have weirdly half of it's like sewing machines and embroidery machines, and half of it is like woodworking tools. But anybody can come in and use those. We have accumulated a lot of donated materials, like little fabric and stuff. So somebody can come in and just be like, I've never used a sewing machine before. I want to figure it out. They can ask for help. They can use whatever paraphernalia we have in this space. So it's really designed as a low risk way to come in and play with things. We have some workshops if people want to have a more formal experience in that space. Also on the first floor, we have a bunch of computers that have all of that high-end software, design software and so forth that none of us can afford on our own. So like the full Adobe suite, or we have Wacom tablets if people are illustrators and things like that. We also have this really big Liquid Galaxy screen, which they told us we're going to be able to put together some really fancy presentations on it. it's really awesome for doing Google Earth, like street view visits. So I've worked with like a lot of international students or students who are planning to visit somewhere else, or people who are homesick, and they use Google Earth to find where they're going and to do sort of like walking tours of spaces. It works well with that. And we're trying to figure out how to get it to break it, and to get it to do other stuff. On the second floor, we have, that's the floor where we have a ton of tables with whiteboards and whiteboards on the wall. That's where our 3D makerspace is. So we have 3D printers, we have laser cutter, we have Cricuts and things like that. We have computers that do AI, we have soldering machines, all sorts of stuff up there. We've had classes come in and, oh, and I'm totally forgetting about all of the recording rooms we have. We have an audio recording room with a booth and all sorts of stuff. I think Andy played in that a bit. We have the One Button Bluehouse Studio, which you go in, all you need is a thumb drive, and it has a camera, it has microphones, it has a green screen. You can record yourself, you can record groups of people doing a variety of things. We are in the process of setting up what I call the TV studio, but it has a different name. So it's a bigger space like that. And then we're also in the process of setting up the immersion room, which is going to be an immersive environment. But all of the stuff students can reserve, faculty can reserve. You can bring your classes over and work with us to just be like, what could you possibly do in this space? Or you could give them specific assignments to do in the space, or you could just use it for a brainstorming hangout session. It's like different seating areas in there too. So it works really well for conversation and brainstorming. But it's a fun, flexible space, and we're only, what, a year and a half, 2 years into having that space. Scott's nodding yes, too. Oh, and Andy's going to be there. As will LB. Cool. So yeah, it's a great flexible space, and come and play.
So Sarah, is it available for drop into, or do you need an appointment?
Nope, you can absolutely drop in.
Okay. And is it open all the time, or is it set hours?
Right now it is Monday through Friday.
Nope, we added Saturday. We
Oh,
just,
Saturday. Awesome.
Yep.
And we do have evening hours too. So you can be there until like 8 o'clock at night. So
Yep.
not
Awesome.
late night, but evening hours. Yep.
we
Very cool.
specifically wanted to, we wanted to add Saturdays because we're hoping to engage the community more,
Mhm.
right? We're missing out on the broader community opportunities here, although have engaged with it. But we hope this Saturday will allow K-State students and staff to come together with the community in more opportunities, which could be pretty great.
What are the Saturday hours?
It's 8 to 5.
Great.
I'm gonna
Okay.
double check that and put it in the chat if I'm incorrect, but I'm pretty sure.
Sarah, this is Barbara. You going to be there, or someone going to be there this afternoon? I have a question and prep for tomorrow.
I will not be there, but there will be somebody there. You're using the audio booth, or you're using the?
Yeah, using a
The One Button
audio
Studio.
visual booth.
Oh, okay, yeah. So when
Yeah.
you come in, each floor has a desk that is staffed. And so you can ask at that desk. If there's nobody at the desk on the floor that you're on, just pop on to the other floor and we'll be
Floor.
able to get you in touch with somebody who can use it and show you how to
Okay.
use the space.
Yeah, I just want to be prepared for tomorrow, and I had a question about what I need to bring to make something happen. So, okay,
Oh, okay, yep.
I'll see you today.
And for those of you wondering, what are LB and Andy recording? They're recording a promo for an event in 2 weeks in our PD series called Rhythm is Plaid, which I'm really excited about. So we'll get to hear a little bit more about that in the promo and be excited to hear y'all in 2 weeks. That's fantastic.
We also have a very large Lego set in the space and some other buildable things. So you can literally come and play in the space or bring kids. We have a lot of faculty and students who have children. And so Jeff Sheldon, one of the directors in the space, has purposely purchased things like Legos and other activities so that if you need to work while you're there, you can bring your child and have them occupied with some of that material as well. We're
That is
not
fantastic.
babysitters, but there's something to keep them occupied.
Yeah, no, that is fantastic though. I really like that aspect.
May I throw in one more thing?
Absolutely.
Equipment checkout. There's actually a space there where you can check out cameras, audio equipment, different tools, laptops, and different tools that will allow you and your students to potentially engage in a remote location. Say you do want to go outside and capture some person on the street responses to a topic you're discussing in the classroom, where you could go to the innovation lab, check out a camera, check out a portable mic, and go hit the streets. So that's another sort of service offered inside that lab that kind of hopefully adds to the opportunity, and again supports drop-in stuff.
Yeah, this reminds me, a number of years ago, Smithsonian had a huge exhibit on innovation and play. And I was in touch with them, and I didn't know if this idea came from that work or whether this was what's going on in libraries around the country now. Just curious.
It is happening in libraries around the country. They're often called maker spaces, and
Yeah,
depending
right.
upon the size of your community and your library, they're showing up in both public libraries and university libraries. So I was at Georgetown for some training a few years ago, and they have a big maker space that's chock full. It's like a big workshop kind of thing. So, and then public libraries will have them as well.
Okay, that sort of explained it. I had done, my students had done a maker space in place of the natatorium at one time. We had looked at that space as being a maker space for both the community.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, that was something, and we thought that along the west side of the stadium, you could have vendors during the weekend who would show their maker products.
Great idea.
And so, yeah, we've been trying, that was something that came up with Pat Bosco when he was here, and my class in community development was looking at that option for it. And hey, I'd love to talk to somebody about it. I mean, because it's a viable option to us as well. So
from IT's side, this really allows us to support academic technology a little bit better, gives us sort of an access point. And most importantly, from my point of view, is it's helped us try to deliver some digital literacy opportunities for people. Like someone mentioned up front, a lot of you can't afford it, like you're saying, Sarah, you can't afford a lot of this software. Certainly can't afford a really nice Wacom drawing tablet. A lot of students couldn't. And cameras when you only need it twice a year, but some high-end digital cameras, et cetera, et cetera. So one of our direct goals is to give students, faculty, classes, whether it's scheduled or drop-in, the opportunity to interact with media creation tools and to start to gain some literacy around that in general and incorporate it more concretely into things that we do.
That is fantastic. I think one of the things we're talking about getting students more engaged is letting them know this place exists. Might be something. And I think telling them they have Legos is going to increase the draw. I guess the plural of Lego is Lego, right? Like I'm wrong on that. I'm gonna keep saying Legos, but I think that's how
you'd be amazed at how many people stop and want to use the manual old-fashioned typewriter that's in there for that exact reason. It's so tactile and so unusual to see nowadays that students that never have touched it love to spend time with it. It's great.
I think the clickety clack too, like, is just reinforcing.
Absolutely.
As you're doing that.
They hear that in cartoons, right?
Yeah.
Right?
oh, okay. So it's not as electric. It's not as electric, right?
Nope.
I think it's a Royal. I actually bought it for a class that I was teaching, and then I put it in that space.
Is that yours, Sarah? Nice. Love that.
Yeah.
My 7th grade typing class used manual typewriters.
Yeah.
Way back when. So.
I think I have one in DC in my home there that someone left.
So one of the things I want to kind of point out, because I appreciated Andy's comment that I haven't already said that I appreciated, is you talked about scheduling, right? Anticipating that students are going to have lower levels of engagement after the spring break. So she had some cool stuff ready for them. And even if you're not going to have, a film day or whatever, one of the things that I would advocate is you think ahead to when it's going to be tough for you and tough for your students. Build in, like for me, I try to save more exciting topics, for the end to kind of naturally have that engagement go up, thinking about well-being days, catch-up days, those kind of things to schedule in. And I find for myself, because I like prediction, I would rather know it's coming than to kind of have to put it in, because I have a hard time sometimes thinking, all right, well, I have 6 days left and I have to get rid of one of them. I might not be able to do that. But if I knew I was going to have a catch-up day, one of those 6, It just makes it easier. Even if I haven't scheduled it, I know that one of those days is going to be used for that. That helps me. So I think the anticipation is something that Andy and other great teachers are probably going to try to do.
Yeah, this is one thing that I strongly recommend front loading classes. I started doing it years ago. And at the beginning of the semester, students have a lot more initiative, a lot more energy. I have a lot more energy.
Mhm.
And so tackling some of those more difficult topics. And I also think it makes sense from a learning perspective to like throw a bunch of information at them at the beginning of the semester and then spend the second half of the semester going like, how does this all fit together? Let's talk about like, let's synthesize, let's think about how we apply this in different situations, which is more, you know, like just letting them kind of process it, play with it, rather than just like continuing to throw information at them. So I feel like it helps both in terms of kind of the way the semester unfolds. By the end of the semester, we're in that space where it's easier to kind of connect what we've already done rather than do new things. And it supports, I think, a more pedagogically sound learning experience from
Yeah.
like new information and then analyzing, synthesizing, evaluating.
I think it also is about accumulative learning, and that the things that you learn in part at the beginning of the semester may come together at the end where you show how they all fit together. For instance, with us, we have our students learn different parts of the process, and then at the end they put it together. And I also do the same thing. I've always built in at the end some fun things to do. Like we did a puzzle one day where that puzzle was exactly the learning lesson, but I found a puzzle that they could put together and they had fun doing that. But now we're going to kick that up again by having them do a little bit of writing exercise where they describe their client, but instead of them having that client, I make them switcheroo. They get excited because they think, oh, this is my client. I'm making this client for me to design to, and then I switch them. And I say, no, that's not your client. That's somebody else's client. So now the students have to talk to each other because they created the client for somebody else. So that forces them to have to go back to that person and ask them questions as they're designing. And then the other thing that I found to be helpful is we'll do a collage just for the fun of it and put our ideas down in a pictorial range, very similar to what you might have a kindergartner do. So I try to break up the really highly technical learning and take a break and take that material and then apply it to their own, the next step in their process. So like Andy and as Don mentioned, I think those are ways that we can give our students a little bit of a break, but keep them moving on the project that's like 4 to 5 weeks long when they're going to get tired of the same thing over and over again. So
one of the points I was making in my teaching class yesterday is that people talk about active learning. Active learning, in my experience, and some of the literature actually bears this out, is better to work with stuff you've learned than as the first way to teach it. So Andy kind of talking about, and they'll be talking about front loading. Now you have the knowledge, now you can play. And that's often a better way to kind of create that information out there. One of the other things that I try to do is I talk about wins, talk about kind of celebrating the things that we're doing. And along that theme, I just wanted to kind of point out that 2 people on the call today are about to defend their master's theses. And CJ Joyner is defending this coming Friday, which is super awesome. And the title of hers is Shocking Results, Impacts of Auditory Tactile Training on Auditory Perceptual Learning. If you want to come, it's Friday at 2 p.m. in Bluemont Room 119. I think there's a Zoom option as well. We're really excited about that. And then TLC's very own Noah Rankin will be defending his master's thesis 1 week from today in the morning at 10 o'clock in Bluemont Hall 449. I think the title off the top of my head is Masculine Honor Beliefs and Perceptions of Male Rape. I think is the title. So ideally what's going to happen is when we come into this next week, we're going to have some really, really happy people who are now Master CJ and Master Noah. So that's going to be pretty awesome. And I think taking those opportunities in our classes to have those positive points with our students, another way to kind of re-energize just a little bit. It just makes us feel good, right, when those things happen. So the next question that I had is, I'm curious about time-saving hacks in teaching. I'm curious about what can we do to kind of make things just a little bit more, I'm going to say efficient, but I don't want to lower the quality, right? Sometimes we say efficient, there's quality loss and we know that, but I don't want to be too much quality loss, right? Like one way to be more efficient in teaching is to put more students in the class, for instance. And I'm not sure that always works, but I'm kind of thinking about, from the excellent teachers that we have on this call, what do you all do to make this job a little more efficient and you're comfortable with it?
Talk with other teachers at a TLC chat and get ideas so that you don't have to think of them all on your own.
I double down on that one. What some of y'all do?
Well, I'll tell you how I've gotten more efficient is that, and I think we've talked about this during the year, that I know where I'm going. I have a roadmap. And so when I come into class, I've already told them the last class, this is what we're going to do. And then I tell them again, this is what our roadmap says we're going to do today. So we either can leisurely go about it, or we've got to move it pretty quickly, depending on how many elements or objectives I want to cover. And what that does for me is sort of keeps me on track to not get off on something else, because it's so easy to find something that relates to whatever you're talking about and getting excited about that and going off the wheel. So I've learned now that my best way of creating that efficiency is to pronounce it at the beginning and pronounce the next session at the end, and then follow through the next class period on doing that exact thing.
Very nice. I think it's hard to get somewhere if you don't know where you're going. And I think those plans are absolutely important. Love that, LB. Thank you.
Yeah, echoing that, I have course objectives and class objectives. And so that helps me a lot into, like, when I'm planning class, to be like, this is what I want to accomplish. And then just like keep bringing myself back to that, because I find it's really easy to get distracted with all the other things, especially when I'm teaching. Like this semester, I'm teaching a course in bilingualism, which is, my specialization and what I'm really excited and passionate about. And I have so much knowledge that I am like, we could do this and that, and I can add this. And so having to be like, nope, let's focus. What are the things that I want the students to learn? What do I want them to get out of it? And being able to have that to kind of rein me in, I find very helpful.
That is awesome. What else? And by the way, you don't have to have been teaching for a long time to chime in on these.
I think that one thing that is helpful that I've certainly learned from Dawn and my lab colleagues is similar to structuring your semester, being proactively anticipating that can also be broken down just to the day. So kind of scheduling things and when you're going to be your high cognitive time, or maybe you're working on writing in the morning when you're kind of energized and whenever you work well, saving maybe emails or maybe more low cog grading things for the afternoon, rather than, flip flop and then don't make enough progress on either one. It's just one simple thing that I think can kind of make the day a little bit more manageable.
Excellent. Thank you, Noah.
With that too, I've started planning, intentionally planning classes and different things in a very specific time frame. Like I have 1 hour from this time to this time. Like I know that that's how much time I need to accomplish this task. Left to my own devices, I could spend an entire day planning a 1 hour class because I could just find the right image for the PowerPoint, and so I think kind of making sure to think about how much time does this task need, and sticking to okay, I'm really gonna be good about this is the amount of time that I'm going to dedicate to this task.
I think that also, Noah brought it up, but I think it also applies to how we work during the day. And he started to suggest some things that make sense. in terms of what you do in the morning and what kind of personality you have to do those things. And I find that if I want to start something at 10 o'clock at night, I start thinking, now, wait a minute, are you really going to be focused to that? Are you going to fall asleep? No, put that off until the morning when you're bright and ready to focus. So certain things, certain types of prep time, I will say work best for me in the morning. And then other things I can do in the afternoon or evening because they don't take the same kind of energy or the same kind of focus in my brain. So those are things you sort of learn over time, just like your students learn when they're better able to focus on something in the morning, evening, or at night. They're learning too what they personally are capable of doing, and they can't look left and right at somebody else and say, that's my schedule. They have to find that out for themselves. And I think that's the same way we do when we teach and we prep to teach.
I think that's an awesome point to also be self-aware of when your strengths are, because I think a lot of times when I'm looking at a to-do list, I make the mistake of saying, I'm going to do way more in a time span than I'm actually going to be able to do. And then I'm immediately crushed by my lack of progress and, get into those learned helplessness and start to flail. If you know that you're great at 2 a.m, and I actually say that because one of my graduate students reliably sends me excellent work at 2 a.m. Over email. Yes, Andrew's raising. I wasn't going to out you, but Andrew's raised his hand. And it's amazing because like LB was saying, there's no way I am going to be cognitively able to do anything worth anything at 2 a.m. My bedtime's like around 10 p.m. It's not going to work. So I think kind of knowing that about ourselves, and as Noah said, scheduling in when it needs to be, and as Andy says, making sure we're only scheduling in that time frame, because there's something called Parkinson's law. I don't know if you've heard this before, but Parkinson's law basically says the task will take the time you give it. So if you give yourself 2 hours, it'll take 2 hours. But if you give yourself 9 hours, it will take 9 hours. So what happens is getting the wherewithal and the self-awareness to know this task should take me 90 minutes, and then finishing that task in 90 minutes and not going back to it after, I think is a skill that we really need to kind of be efficient. Sorry, go ahead.
I was
Someone
going to
say
jump
something.
in.
Sarah.
Scheduling meetings with students is something that I do a lot, but it's a pain to do the emails back and forth. So I use a calendar software. I use a free version, so I can only do it in 45-minute increments, but it can see when I am available on my work calendar without them seeing what I'm doing. And they can just jump in, say, this is when I'm available. We get the appointment. And it took so much time off of my, just like that niggling, like, are you available this time? Are you available that time? Do I need to hold it for you? It's amazing. I'll put a sample of my calendar in there so you guys can see it. I do have to be more proactive about my own calendar keep up then. And if I know I need to work on something, I have to block it off. Or if I know I need travel time, I have to put that on my calendar. But oh my gosh, this made such a difference for me.
You can use the calendar app in Canvas as well. I've done that a lot of times when I'm meeting with students, because then you can also have it shows up as a to-do for the course that they have an appointment with you. So that's another option.
Something that I do, and it's much lower tech, but I find it works for me, is if someone wants a meeting with me, I have them send me their times. So then I can immediately pick one, block it, and we're good to go. Because I don't like the back and forth. I also find if I send you available times, by the time you reply to me, half of those times aren't available anymore. So I'll just say, you send me times, I pick one, we go. And I found better, not complete success, but better success with that. I find with the calendar apps right now, I've got family calendars, I've got academic calendars, and those don't always have the same degree of upgrade. And that gets a little annoying sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to jump in and share similar to Sarah. We use a lot of the computer science department uses Calendly for that. And one of the nice things is Calendly actually integrates with Zoom. And so you can set it up so not only will students schedule a meeting, but it will immediately create a Zoom meeting between the two of you. It's really great for those of us that teach online classes. The free version is great. I pay for the paid version because some of the extra features are fantastic. One of the things that we really like about Calendly with the paid version is students can put in their text phone number and it will text them 10 minutes before the meeting. And that has really helped with attendance. And so, you know, for me, it's worth the extra little bit of money every year to get that feature.
You know, I'm looking at this that you put in there, Russell, and this looks kind of fun. I will say that one of our colleagues had asked me to kind of sign up for something in an online, and it wasn't this. And it was a little bit frustrating because we had a meeting that I thought would take about 45 minutes. They only had 15-minute increments, and you couldn't sign up for consecutive increments because I think, you know, planning time, if things go over, those kind of things. So I had to sign up for these different ones, and it was just kind of annoying, and it didn't map onto my Outlook calendar correctly, and it was a little annoying. But I like how you have this here. I like the descriptions, as Sarah says in the chat. That's kind of cool.
And you'll like they said, it has taken so much of the burden off of me. You know, one of my mantras is whenever students need something from me, I always try and put the effort a little bit on them. You know, I have students come to me after class asking all sorts of questions, telling me all sorts of things. And I always tell them, I have to teach 3 more classes, email me. And then when I have the mind space to think about it, I will deal with it. And so you know, instead of me trying to remember half a dozen things, they can get it in my inbox and I'll deal with it later.
Excellent. Very nice. What other time-saving hacks do we have?
I think remembering that we don't have to put a grade on everything is something that's important, and I think easy to kind of lose sight of. We feel like if we assign something, we have to like immediately like look it over, give feedback, and you know, it's okay to have assignments that we don't look over, or have students do work that maybe instead of having us evaluate it, have them evaluate each other's work or comment on it. So that's something that I've been working on reminding myself of more and more recently. Like, I don't have to look at everything.
I'll also point out, if you are going to provide feedback, a lot of students, amazing number of students, don't know they can go and look at your feedback and SpeedGrader and those things. So if you are going to take the time to do that, at least having them be able to go see that is helpful too. But I love check-in assignments, as I think Andy's talking about a little bit. You know, I love really short assignments. One of the things you probably heard me talk about before, if you've been to any, you know, more than one of these, is I like putting maximums, not minimums, on work. And sometimes that maximum might be, you have to tell me in 6 or 10 words. So it's really, really easy then to see, you know, what is the essence of what their point is. And then it's usually a lower stakes assignment, something where you get all or none of the credit. So it's really, really easy for me to get the pulse of my class without having to invest a ton of grading time. One of the things that I've been talking about a little bit more recently, and actually our Engage the Stage video tomorrow is going to talk about this tomorrow, is having even like how you send emails, right? We talked about kind of like, you know, setting, you know, certain times to check your emails in a previous video. But even if you've ever gotten a message from me, especially a reply from me, you've probably noticed it starts with "thank you" with your message, and it ends with "I hope all is well." And that is by design. That is, it makes it easier for me to know this is how I start, this is how I end. The middle is going to be the part that's probably a little bit personalized. And if I'm going to have to send a message to a bunch of different people that looks like that, I'm going to put that in a Word doc and copy and paste that in. So for instance, I have a Word doc with things like replies to common questions students ask me. You want to join my research lab? This is your reply. You're going to miss a quiz? This is my reply. And those kind of things save so much time. You know, over COVID, you know, you're in isolation or quarantine. I had an isolation message, I had a quarantine message, you know, that I would send to students who did it. And it saved so much time because I find my entire day can be email if I let it. Yeah, Andy says there's a whole folder of email templates. And I think sometimes I've talked to people say, well, it doesn't feel personal. There's usually a personal part to the email, but not every part is the personal part. And by the way, if you ever get an email from me and it's not like an emoji and it doesn't have the hope all as well, you did something to piss me off. I don't know what happened there, because I will have deleted that from the template. But it's one of those things where I think it's just little things that help me decide what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it really help me.
Yeah. To kind of add to that, you know, Scott will appreciate this. I worked in tech support, and one of the things you're taught when you're responding to a tech support ticket is, thank you for asking a question. Let me see if I can help you. Help them. I hope that this helped. If you have more questions, let me know. And you know, just like you said, having that rhythm in your head immediately takes the onus off of thinking about what you're going to say. And I've told that to several of my students. I told them this is my formula for an email, and they go back and look at every email they've ever got from me, and they immediately see that, oh yeah, there's just a 3-paragraph structure to it.
Yeah. And
It's hilarious that you say that too, that, people don't notice,
No.
like you have these templates and you're sending people the same thing over and over again. And most people don't notice that it's this exact same wording. It's just like because the information, the pertinent information has to be personalized. So like the stuff that starts and ends, they don't notice.
I will say the two things that number one, students once got me an ink pad stamp that said, "I hope all is well" on it, which I thought was awesome. But I also then one of my grad students, this was a couple of years ago, started to use "I hope all is well," which is something, if it works, he was fine. But I was kind of like, wait, but that's mine. That's my signature. I'm the one who says that kind of thing. It was kind of funny.
I will say, Dawn, I noticed that you said, "I hope all is well," because in our other conversations, you never say that. And so I was like, the first few times I got that from you, I was like, what's going on? But that's just because I know you from different voices.
Right.
And yeah, so that's like professional Dawn voice.
I will say the caveat to using "I hope all is well" is some people will then tell you how it's going. So I had a previous colleague who is now retired, and I would send him email, and every time I'd say, "I hope all is well," and he said, "Oh, thanks for asking," and he tell me about the grandkids and all this. And I was like, what is he responding to? I don't get it. And it's like, oh, my closing. He's responding to my closing.
Yeah, I've had a situation where I have a single word that I use, and a faculty member recently has adopted it. And I'm like you, it's like, wait a minute, that was mine. You can't get to say that.
Is it best? What is it?
No, it's shalom.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, why is she saying shalom to me? but there, it's interesting how we pick up on things and other people pick them up and decide, oh, those are good ideas or whatever. And then that becomes theirs as well. And I guess we could look at it as flattery instead of saying, I own that. That's mine, because I think people are looking for salutation and different ways to identify themselves. And sometimes it just comes to them. So then they use it. So I get it.
And I'll use, because I haven't made a Greg Eislein quote yet today, and I think it's the law. I need to, because Greg Eislein is my teaching hero. He basically says in teaching, you copy and steal everything. Right. So these are kinds of things where I don't think it's plagiarism if we tell you can do it. And I think I would take that as flattery. It's just, when it's that personalized, it is kind of jarring the first time. I got an email from my grad student that said, "I hope all is well" at the end, when I'd never heard them say that before. It was like, what is happening? So we are about at time. Are there any kind of big things, great ideas that people want to share before we conclude?
I'll share one interesting thing that
Yeah.
we're tinkering with in computer science.
Awesome.
One of our faculty members does exams, and then students get to revise their exams by explaining why their answer was wrong and how they can make it better. And he spends a lot of times writing really good comments on these exams. And he's working on a little project of seeing what sort of comments ChatGPT will write in response to student answers on an exam. And his initial testing looks really interesting. And so he's actually looking at building a simple piece of online software where students can take an exam, and then he can automatically have ChatGPT generate a set of comments for that answer. And he basically just, tweaks and edits and clicks the ones that are actually accurate and useful. But it's a little project he's playing around with just to see how we can start to bring those tools into what we do as teachers. Coming at this from computer science, I don't trust ChatGPT at all, but if it can even, generate some content that's useful, when you're grading 50 or 60 exams, that might be a cool tool. So it's something we're playing around with.
All right. So you need to make sure your colleague presents at the SOTA Showcase, because that sounds fantastic.
I'll see if I can get him into it.
Absolutely. That sounds fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
Don, I have a question.
absolutely.
I have a colleague who wants to join us on Wednesday. What is the best way for her to do that? Should she get in touch with Noah? Should I just send her
Send the Zoom link. Yeah, just send the
Just-
Zoom link. We've had people from other institutions attend these. Typically, they have a K-State connection, they're an alumnus, a colleague, something like that. But I don't want to say this. Well, I guess Scott's here. Scott's not here anymore, so it's okay. That's not a protected thing. IT gets mad
Right.
at us with our security because we don't have much here. We could easily get Zoom bombed and all those kind of things, but it's the link. They can just hit it and come in.
Okay, because she'd like to then continue to go. You know this person that contacted you in the past is one of my faculty. So she is inside of the university, and I meant to do that this morning with her when I saw Noah's note to send that to her. But I wanted to ask because she wants to also get her certificate next year, which means filling out evaluation and all of that. So I didn't know if I should just give you all the name for next year or.
And we'll add anyone to our mailing list. And our mailing
Okay.
list is not an exclusive mailing list. It's just the people we know that want the messages. So
Sure.
you can share those, you can put those
Okay.
wherever you want. That is completely, totally fine.
Okay.
If they want to be on the mailing list, we'll put them on the mailing list. But no, there's no additional barrier. I want people to engage from wherever for whatever reason. So
And I
no,
did tell her to
that's
look
awesome.
at today because usually you all announce it a day or so in advance so that she could find the link herself that way.
So I will now make some of those announcements you're talking about. Number one, thank you all so much for engaging in this chat. I took a ton of notes. You all are awesome. And I want you to keep being awesome for this last little bit. I think after this week, we got 6 weeks left, maybe something like that for the teaching semester, but we're coming up on it. We'll have a post-event survey for you today to kind of provide a little bit of your feedback. Next week, Deepak Supramoni from College of Education will be talking about how to better engage students in our online courses. In 2 weeks, LB and Andy are going to be here for Rhythm is Plaid, and I'm really excited about that one too. You can get a professional development certificate or fellow status from here, and we got the information available online. You can check that link. Soto Showcase, where you can talk about all the cool research and innovative ideas you have in your teaching, will be the Monday of finals week. We'd love you to take part in that. Real easy submission through a Qualtrics survey. And finally, course design workshop by Lori Niffen, brought in by our colleagues in leadership studies, will be, I don't have that open anymore. I think April 10th. I'm looking at my colleagues, April 10th, Monday, 1:30 to 3:30. And that is an actual workshop where you'll learn a little bit of how to infuse service learning in your class. And then you'll actually get to kind of talk about ways to embed that in your class structure and syllabus. So that event has now been dropped in terms of the link. But this is highlights of my week every week. I'm so glad you all were here. Thank you all for all that you're doing, supporting excellent teaching here at K-State. And I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday. Bye, y'all.